What's up, guys? So we're going to continue to keep running these off-season videos, and today I want to talk about trade targets with you guys. Now, the Jaguars are in a really interesting spot right now because the Jaguars aren't like flush with cap space where we just pretty much had to go out and overpay for all these mid-tier free agents. But we're also not in a spot where we have a top draft pick, kind of like years before where we're locked into whether it be the number one pick or a top five pick or, even just top 10 pick. Now the Jaguars are drafting at number 24. So it's going to take a little bit more gymnastics to really find, elite player at that spot. But the Jaguars right now, we still need to get better on the roster. There's plenty of spots that we need to add. Most specifically, I think tight end is a big need. Interior defensive line, you always need offensive linemen. Nickel cornerback is a big need for us. And just overall, we got to fill out the roster. We got to get better all around. But in my opinion, the biggest need for the Jaguars really is like a top tier player at their position, like a true game breaker. And look, teams have been able to get these guys, but generally, if it's not through the draft, it's through trade. You've seen like Stephon Diggs go to Buffalo. You've seen Clark go over to Kansas City, and AJ Brown over to Philadelphia. We saw both Jamal Adams and Jalen Ramsey both get traded to the NFC West. We saw last trade deadline, Chubb went over to the Miami Dolphins. So a lot of these things, these acquisitions, a lot of times they don't hit free agency because teams want to be able to get value out of these guys while they can. They just don't want to let a guy walk if they can get some draft compensation for them. Now the question is, could the Jaguars make a big trade? Could we finally be that team that says, hey, our roster's good, we're there, we just need to get another game record to really put us over the top? Could the Jaguars potentially be that team? Now, I'm going to go ahead and list like 3 potential trades that I've seen out there that seem like it could be a possibility. So I want you guys to kind of let me know about it. And the first one is our old buddy Jalen Ramsey. Now, I think Jalen Ramsey, it really started to spark the conversation when he was watching the Chargers Jaguars game and he was kind of live tweeting through it. He was putting all these complimentary statements about the Jaguars, and then he even put on there that he always loves Jacksonville. Then he actually wound up deleting the tweet later for some reason. Then lately PFF actually made an article and noted that Jalen Ramsey could be on the move with them maybe going through a rebuild, and they might want to scrap some players, get some draft picks, and rebuild their team. And Jalen Ramsey could very well be a trade candidate going forward. Now, the question is, would I want him? I mean, I would love to have a talent like him. He's a great player. And I kind of got to tiptoe around this subject just because, people feel really, really passionately one way or the other about him. My biggest dislikes on him is that I don't really like the way he handles himself on the field. And it's not like I want a player to be quiet and shut up and go to the huddle. That's not what I'm saying. I think because the way he handles himself on the field, if he makes a mistake, he's looking at somebody to yell at. He's going to yell at his teammate. He's going to yell at the ref. He's going to yell at somebody. I mean, he can never just say, my bad. And look, I'm not sitting here wanting quiet players. Who's not a quiet player is Rayshon Jenkins. Rayshon Jenkins is one of the biggest crap talkers out there. But you know what he's not doing? He's not channeling that energy into teammates and putting blame on other people. He'll talk crap to the other team, but he'll take responsibility when he needs to. And that's one thing about Jalen. I also don't like how he's always on Twitter just being really cryptic. And I remember when he was on the Jaguars, I was like, I would see him tweet. I'm like, oh my gosh, does he not want to be with our team? Things like that. And look, one thing that Evan Ingram said after the Jaguars, beat the Chargers, he said that, look, the locker room, we all believed in each other. The defense, all of them were encouraging the offense. They weren't pointing fingers, and that really helped propel them. Does Jalen Ramsey do that? I don't know, but he's an interesting subject. And look, if the Jaguars do trade for him, I wouldn't necessarily be mad about it. It's clearly a big improvement to the roster. But is a cornerback like Jalen Ramsey going to be the thing that really sets us over the top? I don't know. So the next guy I want to talk about is wide receiver from the Cincinnati Bengals. T. Higgins is making some headlines. Yesterday, Dove Kleeman put out a tweet saying that he could be traded for a top pick, and his contract demands are outrageous right now. So I think he's about to go into year 4, so he's eligible for a contract re-up. And look, there's a lot of people out there that really Jaguar fans saying, look, the Jaguars should go after this guy and trade pick number 24 for him. I don't know if that look, I would love a wide receiver like T. Higgins. I just don't know right now, and I'm not a cap expert. I will never claim to be a cap expert. But right now, the Jaguars have Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, who's going to need a new contract pretty soon. Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, potentially if we re-sign him. We have a lot of money invested into ball catchers right now, and not a whole lot of draft picks invested in there. Can the Jaguars really afford to allocate that a really big pool of money to the wide receiver spot? Look, the Jaguars can definitely afford T. Higgins, but we're gonna have to make some decisions elsewhere. And T. Higgins, he's absolutely a game changer. But I see teams right now like I'd say, for example, the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears desperately need wide receiver help, and not only do they have more draft picks than the Jaguars, but they just have more money. I have a feeling that the wide receiver free agency group is terrible this offseason. It's terrible. And I have a feeling that kind of like last offseason, look, a lot of guys, AJ Brown got dealt, Tyreek Hill got dealt, Devontae Adams got dealt. All these wide receivers that were top tier, teams were trading them because they can get big assets out of it. I see a similar thing maybe this offseason where maybe teams are trading for receivers, whether it be T. Higgins or Mike Evans. And I just feel like other teams are going to be a lot more desperate than the Jaguars to go out there and do it. We already made a pretty big trade when it comes to trading for Calvin Ridley at the trade deadline last season. So really, T. Higgins, I don't see him landing with the Jaguars, but you never know. Now, this last guy is the guy that I personally would be trying to make a move for. And that is Aaron Donald, defensive tackle for the Bears. Now, I didn't even think about this until Tony Baselli mentioned it on 1010XL about maybe potentially reaching out to him. And I love the idea. I mean, this guy is a complete game wrecker. From 2018 through 2020, he recorded, 2018 on, he recorded 20 and a half sacks, then 12 and a half sacks, then 13 and a half sacks, then 12 and a half sacks. This last season was a little bit down year for him with only 5 sacks. But look, when a team is good, he's rolling. And what the Jaguars desperately need right now, they need that presence on the defensive line. We have plenty of capital put there, but is Trayvon Walker going to develop into that true game wrecker? I don't know. I think that's putting a lot on him. Josh Allen, I think we know what Josh Allen is, and I don't think he's a number one defensive lineman. I don't think Josh Allen can be your best defensive lineman on the team. And look, there's definitely spots for guys like Josh Allen on every NFL team. NFL teams will love to have him, but when it comes to the premier guy on the defensive line, I don't think Josh Allen is that. And look, bringing in Aaron Donald also fills the biggest need on the team, which is interior defensive lineman. I think you bring him in, all the guys around him are playing a lot better, and it would be incredible. He's a really, really high work ethic guy. My only concern, and he's not even that old. He's going to be 32 years old when the season starts. So his age isn't a concern to me. My biggest concern is just it feels like every offseason there's a little bit of rumors that maybe he's thinking about retirement. Even a couple weeks ago, I think he put on Twitter that he was a former defensive lineman in the NFL. So I don't know. I would really do my homework on him. I obviously don't have the sources or the people to contact and put feelers out there to see how these guys are doing. But who does? The Jacksonville Jaguars. They should definitely explore it. So those are some different potential trade targets, and maybe there's more that's going to be popping up. It feels like every year just trades become more and more of a thing, and it's exciting. I think trades are fun to really watch go down, especially when it's the quarterback position, and my team doesn't need a quarterback because we got our guy Trevor Lawrence. So those are some of my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Remember, everybody, be nice to each other. Go Jags.